Welcome back. Let's continue our coverage of the preview to the midterm budget that's going to happen this afternoon. Many people calling this a very difficult balancing act that the minister finds himself in. And before one imagines a very, very packed National Assembly, Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is going to set the tone for the next 3 years. We also heard news that some of the students from UCT are planning to march to Parliament, where the address will be happening. And what they're demanding is free education, amongst other things as well. Well, we've got Devan Murugan, who's standing outside Parliament this morning. He's been talking to some analysts, but right now he's got some political parties with him who are hopefully going to give us their views and expectations ahead of the midterm budget. Devan, over to you once again, and good morning.
Yes, good morning, Leanne. You're quite right. We've got a reaction from analysts and observers of this budget, but equally important is what opposition parties think about Malusi Gigaba and what he is expected to put forward this afternoon in terms of the midterm budget. We've got a shrinking economy that's growing at the rate of 0.5%. What that weak economy is doing to jobs and economic activity, of course, is under the spotlight. Let's get straight into one of those reactions now. Temba Gordy, leader of the APC, joins us. We were talking off air, Temba, about state-owned enterprises being quite a big focus at this budget because of the contingent liabilities and the pressures it puts on the fiscus. This has to be a very important and significant part of this budget this afternoon that Malusi Gigaba has to contend with.
No, indeed. I mean, if you look at the liabilities of state-owned enterprises, it's just the kind of money that this country does not have. Even Eskom alone has the capacity to bring down this economy. They have been given guarantees of 300 billion rands. They have called in about 250. With their qualified audit opinion, if their creditors say, we want our money back, where do we get that kind of money? So state-owned enterprises on their own have put us in a binder, and I'm not expecting any rabbit, out of the head from the minister. It's a very, very difficult situation that is in.
And the reason why this is important, I would imagine, because if SAA, for example, defaults on some of the guarantees or the money it owns to banks, then we might have this domino effect of all of these, guarantees coming to fore. Government simply cannot afford that. So in that regard, if Malusi Gigaba, the finance minister, has to put forward something concrete and demonstrate that we have a direction with state-owned enterprises, what does it have to be this afternoon?
Frankly, I'm waiting with bated breath, because remember, even the previous finance minister admitted that as government they don't know what it is that is going to trigger economic growth. All they can focus on is fiscal consolidation, which means cutting out on excesses, trying to limit corruption so as to have some additional resources. Otherwise, I think we're in a very, very difficult situation as a country, and our fiscal sovereignty is under immense threat.
All right, before I bring in the other political figure here, just a last question to you, Temba. Apart from the nuts and bolts of this economy, we also have an issue of a credibility deficit, rightly or wrongly, on the Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba. How much of an impact do you think that cloud would hover around this budget this afternoon?
I think the internal dynamics in the majority party is just not good enough. But equally, the political space in the country is very hostile and very unfavorable. And whatever proposal that is going to bring about, are going to be met with skepticism because of the political contestations that are going on. But I would want, as the APC, to say, this is about our country, this is about the future of the country. We need to rally together to see if there are positive measures that is suggesting. We need to say, how do we assist? But as the APC, we believe that the neoliberal approach of the state has actually led us to a situation where we have very, very limited room for maneuver.
All right, let's leave it there. Temba Gordy from the APC. Now, Ngabayomzi Kwankwa from the United Democratic Movement. Let's try and just get his views. Ngabayomzi, we spoke about a credibility issue that's hovering around the finance minister. Whether it's right or wrong, this certainly puts a spin on confidence, investor confidence in particular. If credibility is not secured, you wouldn't get the money coming in. What's the UDM's view in that regard?
No, you're quite right. In fact, it's important for the minister to deal with that issue today up front.
Are we giving him too much of a hard time?
No, you have to give him too much of a hard time because of the perceived close proximity to the Guptas. For example, many people believe that he's a Gupta man. So it's up to him today to actually make sure that he deals with that allegation in order to restore credibility in the South African economy. But what is also important is that, remember, he came up with a 14-point plan. I know it's too early, it was only unveiled in July, for instance. He managed to do some of the things, especially around SAA. But the reform of state-owned enterprises is going to take much longer. But today what we need from him is for him to make bold statements about his plans and how he intends to change the situation around and to reform the SOEs, to make sure that they don't pose the same risk that they pose to the South African balance sheet and the fiscals, as you were highlighting earlier on. Because remember, if some of them default on their debts, it's going to have a domino effect on the South African economy, as you pointed out earlier. So it's important for him to make the kind of noises, but also to show that wherever he has made a commitment, because of that credibility, believability deficit he has, that whenever he makes a commitment to do something, that he makes sure that he actually does it. Because if he doesn't, we are going to be in a crisis.
I think part of the challenge for the people out there is to try and connect what this budget means for them in terms of their economic health. Because at the end of the day, if we are in a situation where we need money, taxes have to rise, he has to cut spending. On that front, does the UDM think he should do something in particular?
We've said since last year, I think, that corporate income tax is one of the areas where we should consider raising it. We can't, for example, be talking about increasing VAT, because if you look at the contribution of private individuals already to the fiscal, it's a lot of money. But at the same time, as you know, that VAT is very regressive in nature, so it would be taken from the poor in order to fund the fiscal and other programs, which would be unfair. But I think the other very important issue here is that in order to try and reignite the economy, we must ask a question whether it's not time for fiscal policy to also kick in the short term, monetary policy rather, to kick in the short term, because we find ourselves, due to circumstances, in a very tight fiscal policy stance, right? So I think monetary policy needs to try and kick in to reignite the economic growth, so that in the long term, once there's space, we can also be able to raise taxes like corporate income tax, but at the same time, when there's fiscal room to maneuver, use fiscal policy to try and stimulate growth in the long term.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed, Ngaba Yomzi Kwankwa from the United Democratic Movement. Let's get one more opinion now on the expectation as far as this afternoon is concerned. Lutando Mbinda from the PAC. Mr. Mbinda, thanks very much indeed for your time. So we were speaking earlier about whether or not this credibility deficit that Malusi Gigaba comes in with, whether right or wrong, will impact on how his remarks are digested this afternoon. What do you think of the Finance Minister's first 6 months, by the way?
Yeah, I'm not sure about what he has done, but I think he will just take a tune from what Pravin Gordhan has been doing all along. I don't see him changing much, because, I mean, the policy that he will be, articulating in the House will be the same policy, finance policies that they have been, of the ANC, which is the ruling party. So I doubt very much it. For me, it will just be a routine exercise, because, as you know, that the economy is melting, and there are these big, more especially shortfalls in the SOEs. He will be telling us about the bailout, but as PAC will really appreciate if he can tell us the bailouts, more especially as from the inception of this so-called democratic society.
Is there anything on the structural front that Malusi Gigaba can convey this afternoon that would see that most of South Africans actually benefit from a well-functioning economy? Is there something that he could mention on the structure front?
The way I see it, for me, he will only be talking about, obviously, education. There is more money that is needed there, and we are still waiting, obviously, for the Fees Commission report. It is still sitting in the President's office, because as PAC we always say we need free education. I'm hoping that at least from next year he will address the issue of free education, as even some of his comrades are already talking about free education. And again, the only problem that we have, obviously, is the issue, the other focus that we should be focusing on, health and safety. Those are the critical issues. Crime, as you know, that it is at the highest levels in the country, and he should be saying something about at least putting more money, more especially within the police sector, so that at least we eliminate crime that is taking place in our country.
All right, we'll leave it there. Lutando Mabinda from the PAC. Thanks very much indeed for your time. And that's where we leave it for now, at least for this morning here at Parliament. Malusi Gigaba delivering his inaugural midterm budget this afternoon. We'll keep you posted and updated as we lead up to that very important update. It's back to Johannesburg.